Thank you, sir. And it's a privilege to be in your course, sir. And good morning to everybody, and welcome to AIOS in Delhi. And since I have a wide topic, I thought I'll take out a few complications from each step of the front part of the process of eco-emulsification. So just to add to one or two complications which Dr. Sushmita already spoke about is the Argentinian flag sign, which once in a while you will encounter. And I have a strategy to manage that, and I wanted to share that with you. So as you'll see here, this will, once in a while, you will have these intumescent cataracts where in spite of your best efforts, you will have this rhexis suddenly running away, and when you least expect it to happen, it just stares you in the face. So anyway, this was a very, very old video, maybe 15 years old when this video was done, but I wanted to share with you the what strategy I use now to manage these. Again, this was in the past when I would, try to do a spiral rhexis. As you can see here, you can start with a smaller rhexis with these intumescent cataracts. You can try to aspirate some of the lens matter, some of the fluid from decompress the lens and decrease the turgescence, and then you can usually it's very easy to start with this small rhexis and then enlarge it gradually. The control is much better with the forceps always, and you can always use the side port where a very high quality micro rhexis forceps are now available. When you go from the main port, you will depress the posterior lip and allow the viscoelastic to go away, so you have to be careful that you don't depress the posterior lip. So today, if you find that in a situation where your chamber is not getting maintained, you can always switch to the side port, use a micro rhexis forceps. But the spiral technique gives you amazing control. These once you've taken one circle of a small rhexis and then you want to enlarge it, your rhexis will almost never run away, because that small strand which you are pulling along will almost never run away to the periphery, and you will almost always have perfect control. And so this is one trick which you can use for some of these cataracts where you find that the nucleus is too tense. I also used to do this cannula aspiration where after the first nick, I realized that if you'll see this cross here, this cross is a sign that this lens is very, very turgid. And you can go from the side port and use a hydrodissection cannula or something similar to just decompress. So just after the first nick, but sometimes you don't even have that much time. It's just when it has to happen, the Argentinian flag sign will usually happen right after you give that smallest first incision. So the strategy I gradually as you can see here, I'm using the micro rhexis forceps, but let's go on since we have less time. What I do now is to decompress the intumescent lens. As you can see here, we are staining the anterior capsule as the usual step for these white cataracts, and then use viscoelastic to form the chamber and ensure that you have a tight chamber. Now I'll go from, if you'll observe here, I'm going with a 26 gauge needle, and it's not bent. I'm creating a new paracentesis. So I'm just making a new entry. I'm not using any of the side ports or the main port, because even the side port will allow some viscoelastic to come out. So here I'm just using a new port so that my chamber is always going to be very tight. With the bevel up, I go inside and I will puncture the lens right in the center somewhere, and as soon as I enter, now this 26 is attached to a 1 cc syringe, I'll immediately start aspirating. So I don't now give time for this rhexis to run away. The moment I've gone in, you can see that I've decompressed the lens. So this has worked for me for the last 3-4 years. Almost 100% of the times I rarely get a Argentinian flag sign now. So once your nucleus, once your cortex is decompressed in these intumescent cataracts, you can see that life becomes very, very easy. Of course, you have to ensure good viscoelastic, and I use the soft shell technique. So heavy viscoelastic right over the capsule is usually helps. Now this is a borrowed video from Brian Little, and this shows the Brian Little's technique. You'll see this video was specially made to show you how to salvage a rhexis which is trying to run away. So as you can see here, as this rhexis goes, you'll see that if you change the direction of pull, now you can see that suddenly he's decided to pull it the other way. So this is counterintuitive, and you might think that this might actually run away, but it actually pulls it back. So for your benefit, I think one more go here. As you go out and your rhexis tries to go into the periphery, now he'll just change the direction and pull it actually inwards rather than pulling it along the direction of the rhexis. So you'll see here now, again, if we just pull it in a little bit, it will actually bring it back rather than let it run away. So this can be a useful adjunct sometimes when your rhexis is running out, among a lot of other possibilities of maneuvers. So this almost always works. So let me quickly take you now to, let's see if I have, I wanted to share one more video here. I'll just see now. I think we'll skip this. Okay, now this is what I wanted to show. There are two ways that you can do the Rexis with the, you can use the image guided system or you can use the Rexis marker. Here we are using the Virion image guided system for our incision planning and for our Rexis. So you can see the video overlay, and this is of what you see in the microscope. So you have these incision guides, and then you can go for your, if you're doing toric IOL, it becomes very useful to place your incision. And even otherwise, if you notice here, this is the Rexis. So you have this Rexis guide. I set it at 5.2 millimeters, and this overlay allows you to run the Rexis just inside that overlay. You can actually change it to whatever size you like. It almost gives you a perfect size Rexis. So femto, it almost like a femto Rexis if you are careful. So that you could see there. Of course, not related to this surgery, but if you come to the end of this surgery, you'll be able to see that when I'm implanting the toric IOL, again this guide becomes very useful. And at this point, once I inject the lens, this will show me the axis of implantation, so I can orient my lens on that. So anyway, I mean, this is another technique to use this, but a simpler way would be, this is if you have the Callisto Eye or the Virion. Let me quickly show you the Rexis marker which I use, and I'll just see if I can. I think this video has it. I've put this, actually it skips that first step where I've put this mark. Can you see this round thing? Now this is just like a well which we use for LASIK, the alcohol well, or it's just like a trephine. So it just goes and marks. In fact, Dr. David Chang, who's here, this marker goes by the name of Dr. David Chang. And I love to use his marker specifically. It gives you the perfect mark. So you can see here this mark. Of course, this patient also had a toric IOL. So, but I'll just show you the rest step where we do the Rexis. And as you'll see here, you have to just place that mark before you start. And now you can see that I have this mark on the cornea. It's just going to cost you maybe a few hundred rupees to buy this Rexis marker, and it's available from most people. I think Epsilon also carries this, and most other stalls. I have no financial interest, but you can see that I almost got a perfectly round Rexis here, and it makes life easy. Now, going on from capsular Rexis, I think this video will be useful to showcase something else as well. This was a pediatric cataract where we had a PC plaque, and once we had aspirated the thing, I wanted to remove this PC plaque. So using Viscoat, I formed the chamber nicely, and then initiated this small primary posterior Rexis, and was able to. This child was planned for a toric IOL as well, so we wanted to be sure that this primary posterior Rexis is not too large, but leaving the plaque there would have compromised with the vision. So I was able to complete this primary posterior Rexis. As you can see here, we've been able to do that. Now I'm going to place this toric IOL in the back. What I wanted to show you here was how to seal these incisions. Till now, I would not leave any pediatric cataract incision unsutured. Off late, over 5 years, if I find I use another technique to seal my wounds, I'll just share that with you. Now here we've placed the toric IOL in the desired axis, which was not anything complex, except that we have to be careful it doesn't go through that PC opening. But once that is done, you'll see that now I'm trying to seal the wounds. And this is where I wanted to share with you how I do things differently now for these pediatric cataracts. Now just watch this. I already have that main incision, but let me just take you back to this point and just see now that this is my main incision. To seal this, what I'm going to do is create another incision or a small tunnel in the roof of this incision. So it will be starting just inside this is my main wound. I'll start just about 1 millimeter or so inside that. For this, you have to have viscoelastic in the chamber. Just see this. So I've first tried to seal the side ports, and now I'm creating a second with my 2.2 incision, and this is relatively a blunt one. I don't want it to just enter suddenly, so I've created a small pocket here. Now I'm not going to seal the main wound, I'm just hydrating the pocket. What it does is that it hydrates the stroma, and you will almost always have a 100% sealing wound. And you can check this with the Siedel's thing, and I use this sometimes because Trypan Blue is almost always available in your sets. So you can make this a habit. If you have spare Trypan Blue lying and you want to check your wound, after you have inflated the wound, you can just put a drop of this and you can see a stream running away, just like we do with fluorescein on the slit lamp, and it works out. So this, whenever you have a wound which is not sealing on the first go and you are trying to hydrate it, don't waste time trying to hydrate the wound. Just go and make another small pocket in the roof of that incision and hydrate that, and that will make sure that you will have a perfectly sealing wound without wasting any time. Most of the times you don't even have to, you won't have to suture it. Now this complication, since is an IOL complication which I wanted to share, somehow it's not allowing me to show the slideshow. Maybe I can show it just like this. So here was a lens which I was going to inject, and this, yeah. Okay. So this was a preloaded lens, and as we went in to inject this lens, you can see that as this lens comes out, I'm having a bit of problem trying to inject it, but I wasn't prepared for what was going to happen right after that. So it came out in a very funny and peculiar way. It was, I think, when we pushed it to, because it's a preloaded lens, we didn't have to really load the lens, but we just had to push it. So very rarely this will happen, that you will have a damaged haptic or a damaged broken haptic come out. But here, what I wasn't prepared for what was going to happen. If you look right in the middle, it's almost like the lens has been chewed up inside. There was, the optic had a big hole right in the middle here, where the lens was missing right here. So this was a disaster. Now you can manage, of course, these lenses in various ways, but here we decided to just cut through the optic. You have several instruments available for this. I keep a good stock of Vana scissors. I usually buy 10 every time I come to these meetings, and discard them after each time that I use it. But I have some special MST instruments also for cutting these lenses, and they, when in a situation, you can use those. So here you can see that this lens comes out, and after that, of course, you can just put in a new lens. But let me come on to a small other video.